By the time the sheriff's helicopter finished circling, the Cessna was sitting crooked in a cloud of dust at the far edge of my ranch. I had talked the pilot in, rushed over with a fire extinguisher, and helped the two injured people climb out. Everything was under control, except for Valerie Stokes. Valerie, the Sunrise Bluffs HOA president, stood by the yellow tape, screaming at a firefighter that the plane was illegal and that I was running an airport. She demanded a deputy arrest me for operating an unlicensed airstrip. Next to me, a guy in a Navy windbreaker with an FAA flight standards patch watched her with bored patience. He leaned over and asked quietly if she'd been like this the whole time. I blinked and asked if he knew her. He smiled slowly. "Oh yeah," he replied. "The FAA has a whole folder on your HOA president. We've been watching her complaints for months." My name is Dylan Mercer. I inherited Red Hollow Ranch, 65 scrubby acres next to Sunrise Bluffs. While the HOA sold stucco boxes and walking trails, I had my granddad's grass strip, legally registered with the state and logged with the FAA. That tiny detail made Valerie Stokes very, very mad. Under her rule, the HOA had a ban on aerial nuisances. When I flew, Valerie saw it as the end of civilization. She called the sheriff's office so often they started recognizing her voice. She filed complaints with the city, county, and FAA with subject lines like, "Urgent backyard airport threatening families," and reporting low-flying death machines over Sunrise Bluffs. She posted grainy videos online, claiming my gentle landings at 45 knots were endangering children. Then she escalated to hardware, flying a drone over my runway like a fat, angry mosquito. When I protested, she scoffed, "I don't own the sky. The community has a right to protect itself." One hot afternoon, the sky crackled with a voice saying, "Mayday, Mayday. Engine out, searching for a field." I grabbed the radio and called out that I had an open grass runway, Red Hollow private strip. The Cessna crashed hard, but I got the pilot and passenger out. I'd barely gotten them clear when I heard sirens. Then, I heard another voice faintly, patched through on a separate line. It was Valerie, telling 911 that I was blocking emergency response, refusing to let anyone help, and that there were explosions. The dispatcher warned her that making false statements on an emergency line was a serious offense. Valerie replied that she was the HOA president. By the time the fire trucks arrived, Valerie was marching under the yellow tape, heels sinking into the dirt, announcing that this whole operation was illegal. A paramedic gently asked her to step back. She swatted his hand away. That's when Collins, the FAA investigator, stepped in. He flashed his badge and told her she was contaminating an accident site. She asked if the FAA was finally here to shut me down. Collins said, "Actually, we're here because a pilot had an emergency and because someone had been filing, let's say, creative reports about air safety in this area." He asked her if there was any particular reason. She told 911 dispatch I was blocking emergency response when I was the one who called it in. Valerie stammered, falling back on her claim that I ran an unauthorized airport. Collins held up my printed, registered strip information. He then informed her that filing knowingly false aviation reports, interfering with an accident investigation, and operating drones in a manner that endangers aircraft were all federal matters, that it was his jurisdiction, not hers. A ripple of laughter went through the gathered first responders. A deputy stepped in, saying Miss Stokes ignored instructions to stay behind the tape and made physical contact with a paramedic, constituting interfering with emergency services. The pilot, stable but bandaged, insisted on talking to the sheriff. He said I saved their lives, that my field was ready, my procedures were textbook. The local news reporters who arrived instantly saw the story, the injured pilot praising the ranch owner, and the HOA president arguing with a federal investigator. 3 weeks later, Valerie received a certified letter from the FAA Enforcement Division. Collins and the regional council had exposed her pattern of lies, the reports of passenger jets that were single-engine trainers, the drone flying near my pattern, the 911 call where she invented explosions. The FAA issued a notice of proposed civil penalty against Valerie personally for multiple counts of making materially false statements and interfering with an accident site. The proposed fine was in the low 5 figures. They also referred part of the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office for potential obstruction charges. The HOA board realized Valerie's war on my runway had just cost the association more in legal defense than their annual budget. At a special meeting, a motion was made, and a vote was taken. Valerie Stokes was removed as HOA president for cause. The vote wasn't even close, 23 votes to remove, 4 against. The gavel fell, and just like that, the woman who thought she controlled the sky couldn't even control a single HOA meeting anymore.